Today, there are more AI models available than ever before. Some are open source, while others require a subscription. But is the free version enough? Or is it actually worth paying for one or even multiple subscriptions? It's getting harder to tell. So first, let's take a moment to clarify some terms that often get mixed up, especially open source, free access, and subscription-based access. When a model is open source, that usually means its code and model weights are publicly available. You can download it, run it locally, or even build it into your own application. In most cases, you don't have to pay for a license. Famous models like LLaMA, Mistral, DeepSeek, and the new Qwen 3 fall into this category. But even though the model itself is free in terms of licensing, that doesn't mean it's free to use. You still need infrastructure, powerful GPUs, lots of memory, storage, and bandwidth. If you provide all that yourself, it gets expensive quickly. Another option is to pay a cloud provider that gives you on-demand access to well-known models, but that also comes with a price tag. Then there's free access through a provider's web interface. For example, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, and Gemini all offer limited free usage. You can try them out, get responses, and see real value without paying anything. Of course, behind the scenes, those models still require serious compute power. You're just not the one paying for it directly. The provider usually covers those costs, hoping you'll upgrade to a paid plan later or that your conversations can be used for training, unless you've opted out. And finally, there's subscription-based access. This is when you pay a fixed monthly fee, usually between $20 and $30, though some plans can cost hundreds, to unlock better performance, faster response times, longer context windows, access to tools and integrations, and higher usage limits. Examples include ChatGPT Plus, Claude Pro, Grok 4, and Gemini Advanced. So even though open source, free tiers, and subscriptions might seem similar at first glance, they work very differently in practice. And understanding those differences is key to figuring out which setup actually makes sense for you. This raises the question, when does it actually make sense to pay? In our view, the free versions of most major AI models, like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, or DeepSeek, already offer a great starting point. They're more than good enough to get a feel for which one fits your personal style or workflow best. That makes them ideal for testing and comparing, especially when you're still figuring out what you really need. But subscribing to several models at once is usually a waste of time and money. If you're mainly chatting, asking questions, or writing simple content, you're unlikely to get much extra value from 3 or 4 paid subscriptions. For basic to medium-level tasks, like drafting emails, writing essays, or solving common coding issues, the free tiers perform surprisingly well across all major providers. In fact, we'd argue that for general-purpose use, there's often no need to pay at all, unless you start running into specific limits. Which raises another question. When does upgrading actually make sense? In most cases, it's not about having the latest version of the model. Core language abilities haven't jumped so dramatically from one version to the next that you'll feel a huge difference overnight. But you'll likely need a paid plan if your tasks involve handling very long or multiple documents, using images, files, or voice input, relying on several tools or data integrations, or if you require fast and consistent performance, especially during peak hours or for professional work. Another key factor when deciding how much to pay, or whether to pay at all, is what kind of user you are and what your use cases look like. If you're using AI casually for everyday personal tasks, then, as we mentioned, the free versions are often more than enough. And when it comes to the first paid tier, we think all major providers offer roughly the same value, unless you need a very specific feature, like image generation, that not all models offer. But if you're using AI for business or work-related tasks, check your company's internal policies first. There may be restrictions, or your employer might already have a subscription with one of the major providers. For example, if your company uses Google Workspace and gives you access to Gemini, that's a huge plus. You can use Gemini directly on company documents and data. The same goes if you're in a Microsoft environment using Copilot. Even though Copilot is more of a service layer than a standalone model, it gives you powerful AI access right inside your files. It's also worth checking if your company has an enterprise license for ChatGPT. In that case, you might already have full access without needing your own subscription. What if you're a developer or technical user? Which one should be preferred? If your use case is coding related, then paid subscriptions start to make a lot more sense. This is one of the fastest moving areas right now. New features, new agents, and entirely new workflows are being released almost daily. We don't think developers are about to be replaced. That's probably a whole separate video. Let us know in the comments if you want that. But for tasks most developers often dislike, like writing documentation, reading code bases, or auto-completing code, today's top models are already super useful. This is also where most innovation is happening. For instance, advanced IDE integrations, new agent workflows, and tool chains and automation pipelines. But again, most of this is behind a paywall. The only real exception is open source CLI tools. But overall, if you're in IT or development, paying usually makes sense. In fact, we read that the majority of high-tier subscribers for ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and Claude are developers. It's easy to get caught up in upgrades, spend hundreds of dollars, and later realize you didn't need all that. That's why we think it's smart to test different subscriptions. But eventually, pick one. Not because a model scored 3% higher this week, but because the one that you're comfortable with, that your team prefers, and the one that simply feels right to you. Here's our final thoughts. Sometimes, sticking with the free version really is the smartest move. If you need full control over your infrastructure for compliance or security reasons, then you'll need to pay for hosting anyway, whether or not the model itself is free. Cloud services like AWS Bedrock, Google Vertex AI, and Microsoft Azure AI let you run both open source and proprietary models in a managed environment. But if you're planning to use a paid subscription, we recommend testing first. And once you find a good fit, it's smart to stick with it for a while and really learn how to make the most of it. We'll be here to guide you on that journey by sharing updates, testing models and use cases, and giving you honest insights from the real world. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment, share it with a friend who's also trying to figure this all out, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.